Yeah. No. Hey. Do it. You do it. Yeah. You do it. Yeah. What are you doing? Hey. Stop waking. Stop waking. Stop. You jacuzzi. Hey. 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 Okay, go. I gotta smoke. Gross. Hey, what's up, Felix? Today for me will be one of the most important and special transmissions I ever offer. Up to today, of course. Because there's another video to come after that YouTube, right? There's always the next level. But this is going to be one of the most special transmissions I've ever offered. And I'm going to teach tonight. The energy transmission is still there, but I'm going to teach in a very different way. And I'm going to teach in a different way for a few reasons. One, so that it's not just a transmission of energy to help you heal and resolve aspects of your life, but a transmission and a video that you may refer to when any degree of suffering is occurring as a gift from my heart to yours, or through tonight's offering, I can walk you through the fire that we often spend so much time trying to negotiate with or fight. To start at the end and work backwards, I will let you know that the details of my experience have a very happy ending. This has all been a part of an initiation I've been going through with the universe that I've been preparing for many years. I knew the completion of the initiation was coming. I did not know the details of how it would unfold. And I never could have imagined how life had to be arranged in order for this to be complete. The name of tonight's teaching, and of course it will be on YouTube, will be called The Pain of Loss. Many years ago, on several occasions, I experienced life-changing awakenings of consciousness. And when that occurs, the various aspects of self-realization serve to unplug the ego from the light socket, so to speak. When you wake up, no matter how many times you go through waking up, and I've gone through it many times over my lifetime, starting when I was 8, the ego first gets unplugged. The ego goes inactive. And then you go through a process where the ego is scrubbed out of the cells of your body. And I've been going through this process over many years while teaching and transmitting, and the more it got scrubbed, the deeper my teachings became, and the more everything in our community grew and evolved systematically. And I had this little bit left in the cellular body to scrub out. And I'm going to describe to you tonight what happened and what I went through in order for that last little bit to be scrubbed out. And the reason it had to happen was because I'm naturally an expanded being. And over the years, my journey hasn't necessarily been about getting out of ego. My journey has been about being a spiritual being and fully entering the body. And I say that because many of you are having this experience and may not know it. And what has happened to me has put me fully in my body. As intuitive beings, you can tune into the transmission and you can feel the difference. I can. Everything about me is totally different, and it gives me the opportunity to serve you in the deepest way than I ever have been before. And that's the great thing. The other reason I'm going to teach differently tonight is because I consider my connection with you, whether in person, at our Soul Convergence events in Angel Academy or on YouTube, I consider my service to you a relationship.
Hey, how's the audio?
A lot of you feel the teachings, you listen to them, whether with your family or in the privacy of your own personal space. And a lot of you feel as if we're having a relationship like I'm just speaking to you in a room of many. And it's because I am. And from my perspective, whether you think of me as a teacher, a healer, or a spirit guide, I have a relationship with you because what I transmit is coming from my heart. And I want to teach differently tonight, and I want to share with you what happened to me so that you can see yourself in this journey and so that our relationship can deepen. So as we continue to meet in person at events, in soul convergence, soul gatherings, whether you're coming to a local gathering or traveling across the country to be here with us, I want our relationship to deepen because of how deep this journey goes and how prepared I am to help you through it. So with that, tonight's transmission, the game changes. Our relationship deepens, and that you are. What happened to me unexpectedly, and you could ask, well, you're an intuitive, why didn't you see this coming? Because if you would see something coming, you would rob life of the opportunity of doing stuff. You're not always meant to know what's supposed to happen. What happened to me unexpectedly, within literally one split second, like a gust of wind blew into my life. And I experienced, like I've never experienced before, complete, absolute, irreversible devastation. I wasn't sure if my transmission tonight would include tears, which I'm fully okay with. I've spent the last 5 days on buckets of tears, discovering an inner warrior in me where all of my tears became my war paint. I don't wish to talk about the details of what catalyst brought this to be for a few reasons. One, because it's so easy in the storyline of it to escape the pain of devastation and choose sides. Why did this happen to him? Did someone do this to him? And we choose sides to get out of the pain. And at that point, we're not honoring pain, as the ultimate transformer. I will tell you, just to absolve your curiosity, I'm in perfect health. I've not been diagnosed with anything. Julie and I are totally fine. I didn't get into an accident. I didn't cause an accident. I didn't do anything wrong, and the people in which this involves did absolutely nothing wrong, which was why this was such a perfect devastation. Because it wasn't as if someone that you knew acted out of character, and you can call it betrayal. In my opinion, betrayal is life attempting to assassinate your ego and doing very sloppy work. Because betrayal gives you the distraction of focusing on what someone did to you. And when no one did anything wrong, but just be a puppet for the divine to play out the most unexpected devastation you have ever imagined, you've been given the luxury of having nothing to distract you from the absolute emotional apocalypse that is put upon you. And from the moment this happened, my instinct, not my choice. Choice gives you the awareness to stand back and decide how you're going to respond. You can't do that when there's no more you. I've been living in a reality where I haven't necessarily experienced myself as the character that I am dressed up to be for a long time. I've gotten used to the fact of walking around and talking like my voice comes out of just a black hole. I've experienced the complete annihilation that people refer to as enlightenment. I've spent 15 years in a state of samadhi, which means a meditative state, an uninterrupted walking meditation, where your body is relaxed and totally asleep, but functioning, and your mind is totally awake, and the ego is completely disconnected. Remember, unplugged, but still needs to be wiped out of the cells of the body. So in one split moment, split second, out of no fault of my own, out of no fault of anyone else's, no lack of consciousness, no moment of questionable integrity, no slip up. Absolved of the opportunity to blame myself for what I did wrong in life, hammering me to teach me a lesson. Oh, no, that's too simple. It's way too simple to try to pin this on yourself. And pinning it on yourself and wondering what you did to deserve this is what we do when we're tired of pinning it on other people. It's just a form of inner negotiation. And the one that does all this moving and negotiating is what the devastation is trying to destroy. It's not trying to hurt the ego, it's trying to liberate it out of its dream of despair and send it home. And like I said, I had a little bit in the cellular body that wasn't active, but needed to be cleaned out. And life did this by completely destroying me in one split second in the most unexpected way. Whereas someone who has gone through death after death after death, this was cellular death. This was it being wiped out of the cells. And in that death, I had no ability to even question anyone's ethics or integrity. And it was as if the giant cosmic hand of God came through the parting of clouds in the sky and came down in front of me, opened its hand, and said, "Your final vision quest is here. Will you let me lead the way?" And through the fire of my own complete devastation, God. To imagine what energetically caused me to attract this is a misunderstanding of vibrational alignment. High vibration does not mean you do not attract atrocity. It means you have the skills and capacity to process and come out the other side better than ever before and in a shorter amount of time. The only difference between high vibration and low vibration is the same transformation happens, but under longer periods of time. And of course, the longer the time, the more agonizing. So we raise our vibration not to avoid atrocity and devastation, but to equip us with the skills. So when it's time for us to win cosmic bingo, and our prize is for an entire galaxy to come together as an eternal fist and propel itself through time and space and knock you in face and destroy you into 1,000 pieces and scatter you across infinite dimensions. That's the gift.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me. And to even suggest, and I say all this because it's important to absolve the mind of its subtle judgments, especially the spiritual judgments. Oh, well, Matt, you're probably attached to something. When you're attached to something, it's only bound to change. It's ephemeral, it comes and goes. What's really funny on the spiritual journey is we have, in a lot of ways, what I call a reverse ego trip. You're not devastated because of attachment. The real attachment is the fear of intimacy and the fear of participating in your life full on, and we call that detachment. When you give all of yourself to every moment, you put yourself in a position where life can really devastate you, and devastation is life showing you how healing really works. And if we see it through an ego, we think, I'm not going to give myself to the moment, I'm going to be half in and half out, and the moment I smell any whiff of destruction, I'm going to get the hell out of there. And when you get the hell out of there, you're preserving what life is trying to destroy on your behalf. You're taking the soul's journey from the ego's perspective. So this isn't about attachment. This is about giving yourself to every single moment. And when unexpected misfortune happens at no one's fault, your unbelievable will become your medal of honor. If you let the force of nature that is burning you from the inside out, if you let the fire rage. To let the fire in you that is caused by devastation burn so brightly that you no longer smell what is being melted out of you. That you are in such a degree of pain and shock that you become so thankful that you're alive in a body and have the ability to feel something this deeply. And completely amazed at how unimaginably surreal and painful life can be just to make you into who you're meant to become. The biggest problem on the spiritual path, one of them at least, is we're trying to survive devastation. You do not survive devastation, you are transformed by it. The one trying to get through it is the one who will not make it through it. You can only become different, and once you're different, the destruction stops. Not on a dime. You gotta let devastation be complete with you. I allowed the fire to burn me completely. And do you know what the fire did when I did that? It burned bigger and deeper. I wasn't doing it thinking, I'm going to let this burn me. And then it's like, and life's going to see me going, wow, that's a really wise being. Let's just stop all this. They get the message. No, I went into the fire and said, take me. I see what this is. And then it continued for many, many days without any recourse explanation. It became profoundly obvious that this happening wasn't a result of a group discussion. So you're immediately put in a position of, I have nothing and no one to negotiate with. Because what are the odds that you're going to negotiate your way out of something that you weren't asked about ahead of time? And what are the odds that if you're asked about it ahead of time, you would have had the ability to say, that sounds like something I'm up for. Or really, for me to become my highest self, I'm going to have to be completely devastated and rocked with a spontaneous emotional nuclear disaster. I mean, that's the level of what I'm talking about. not trying to mince my words because I want to give you the feeling of how deep this was. This was not a disappointment because I have no expectations. I know what expectations feel like. I lived with them in my childhood and my adolescent years. Expectations are a mental fantasy, and it's what we wait and hope for while checking out from the life that we're afraid is going to hurt us. Expectation is how we avoid the anticipation of pain or rejection. No expectations from me. Just each moment as it is. And this devastation was so surreal because I knew inherently it was the very process of life that rips us apart, that is giving us a chance to simply watch. Life only rips you apart to empty out what needs to be released, and then we'll put the pieces back together if you do not interrupt it. What are the odds that a surgeon is going to complete his job efficiently if you're trying to strike up a conversation? That's why you get anesthesia. This one's a talker. Knock him out. My devastation eradicated any cellular notion of hope. And I say to you that as actually what for me has been an experience of serenity. When I say extinguishing hope, I don't mean I got devastated, I shut down. This is a turning point in my life, and now I run outside my house and yell at children. And everyone in the neighborhood goes, he used to be a nice guy, but ever since that thing happened to him, now he's the grouchy dude. I'm not saying no hope like this has ruined me and soured me and I'm now damaged. Destroyed, not damaged at all. Not damaged in the least. And how I went through this in a course of 5 days. And when I'm ready to tell the tale, it actually has an extraordinary happy ending. When you are devastated, people attempt to be there for you, and it's a very lovely sentiment. Being alone doesn't necessarily give you relief, and being around people feels exactly the same. And when people around you are trying to reach and help your experience, and all they can do is just witness your unraveling, then it brings up in them their own fear of destruction. And now you have to be there and help other people cope with the irreversible misfortune that you can't hide in yourself. Someone asked me, does this make you want to die? They said, if I had this experience, I think I'd want to die. Does it make you want to die? And I said, dying is just how we attempt to stop the bleeding. Die? When you are destroyed deep enough, something in you wakes up and looks to the sky, screams out to the divine, and says, thank you for choosing me for this path of mastery. Because that's what this is really about. Completely destroying anything that prevents you from being the fully embodied master that you are. And I've been going through this little by little, piece by piece, awakening, realization. And isn't that the big folklore that advancement in spiritual consciousness is all about this big opening of consciousness? And I see a bigger picture, and oh, I see angels, and now I get it, we're all one. First, you know, all is one. Then whatever in you exists as a byproduct of other than one becomes a moving target for the universe. And the only reason why that hurts the ego is because it can't sit still and let the universe get its mark. If the ego could ever sit still, the assassin would take what it's here to send home without the need for messiness. The grace of what happened to me was not messy. It was not messy. No one was blamed. No crosswords were had. No accusations, no projections. Just a one-punch emotional knockout And I was very clear on seeing that it was time for me to go to the next level. So I sat down and I took my medicine. Not looking at my life at, what have I done to deserve this? Was there an imbalance in me? What did I do to manifest this? What lessons can I learn? Someone asked me that too. Any insights have come from this? Yes. I'll tell you what I've learned. I can take a hit. When I was a kid, I was afraid of fighting. I was afraid of being hurt, physically hurt. And I've learned out of all of this, I can take a hit, a big one. I got hit. I crumbled. I was completely annihilated. And I just let the pieces come together on their own. Will you allow, not look for is a form of avoidance. So I'm gonna look for devastation so I can get to it fast and get this over with. That's how we're trying to speed through the process. That's not how devastation works. Have you noticed? It takes its time. Because only when devastation takes its time with you does it make you more authentic. You ever seen people who have a kind of deep presence to them where they walk in the room and you can feel their energy? And a lot of time it's almost as if their skin has been tattooed with the layers of adversity that they've endured and survived. And it cultivates such a character in them that you can literally feel them from several feet away. This is the sign of a being who has merely earned the credential of their fully embodied potential, whether they allowed it or not, but just enduring the test of time. This is a journey of endurance. And it's a journey of endurance where the way you develop endurance is by enduring. And people say, well, what can I do to make it easier on myself? But that's not how we endure, do we? That's how we avoid. Well, how can I do it in a way where it doesn't have to be so intense? Well, that's how we avoid, not endure. Enduring is when you let life win. When it's your time to shine, and you find yourself in the storyline of life being the character who out of nowhere loses. You had something, no matter what it is, your health, a marriage, a child. I'll speak about this with sensitivity. And when you lose, like I said earlier, it's not because you're attached to it. You are not the one who decides whether you're detached or attached. That's a falsehood. Because you're only as attached, quotations, as you need to be, which the funny thing about the word attachment is if you contemplate the difference between attachment and dedication, you'll find attachment is just a spiritual judgment against the fear of what will devastate you as a byproduct of dedication. You become dedicated to love, and you will be devastated. And the judgment of wanting to avoid that devastation that comes as the gift of dedication, we call attachment. It's a judgment. And the things that you're not attached to are just the things that aren't the soul contracts in your field that are required to do the devastation when it's now time for you to go on. So no one chooses to be attached. Just like you try to let go and it becomes a repetitive thing you're trying to do. You're the one who's let go of. You're not the one needing to let go of anything. Attachment is a fear of dedication. Dedication will always lead to devastation. And devastation is how the ego, whether just a little cellular imprint, got to be cleared out of your field. Like I said, I have this much to clear out of my field. And in order to get a little bit, I guess they had to destroy everything. And the initiation for me is you're going to be destroyed, which I didn't know the game. You're going to be destroyed, completely leveled to your core. To your core. I can't even say I was brought to my knees because they weren't even there. That would have been a response to this. This was like a gust of wind, done. And the initiation was, you are annihilated completely. We have this much cellular imprint to clear. You're going to come back and we're going to put you fully into your body. And we devastate you, you come back to life just to confirm there's nothing left to buff out of you. God took one of his infinitely favorite works of art off the shelf and gave it a final polish that it didn't know it was about to have. And so the shock of the polish out of nowhere was surprising, was unnerving. And I'm taking my time to express to you in brutal graphic detail my experience, because whenever you listen to this and watch this, when you're going through something painful, having the words to your experience is what will move you through it. We try to move through our experience because we're trying to get out of the experience instead of move into position to allow the experience to change you. You're not the one who needs to assert change in your life. You just need life to change you for the better. And life already has its plan. And the reason you don't know about it is because it wouldn't work if you knew. But I'll tell you something. I'm not even going to say that I faced my worst fear, because I never could have imagined this. I survived. Because I haven't experienced fear in a long time. But I survived the deepest pain, the greatest adversity, the most profound hell I have ever known. And the entire time, the only thing that I said is, God, have mercy on me. Because it changes you. It changes you on a molecular level. That doesn't make a lot of rational sense to some people. You go through devastation and you're more faithful to the divine. And whether you know yourself as the divine, which I've had as a lived experience for most of my life, knowing you're the divine does not spare you of this. We think in enlightenment that, oh, all of a sudden I don't feel things. No, you feel everything. You are in the body. You are feeling what the body's going through. You have a sense that it's not you who it's happening to, but it does not change the experience. The whole idea that I'm going to watch from afar and not be as in the pain, that's a true experience. That's a beginner level self-realization experience. Deeper on the path, you experience pain and despair as the I am, but from the I in the body experience, not from the walking behind the body detached, watching in a movie theater experience. And the idea of trying to pull your awareness back so that I can watch the body and it can go through its flailing motions, and I'm over here, ha ha ha, didn't get me. This too shall pass. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. Woo-hoo, got out of that one. That's called a disassociation. A bypass, a need to reframe. Let me look at this on the bright side. What? This wasn't a negative experience. I don't have to look on the bright side. This was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It was. Because it brought me in all of my cosmic glory back into this earth plane and put me in my body. I had mostly been in my body, but I'm fully in my body. And now fully in my body, all of my abilities are upgraded. Everything is different. And what we do together is going to be unreal. The greatest thing you can experience to help pain, loss, and despair is to take time to be present with the intensity of it. The reason I am running through my sincere testimony with such intensity, and I'm just talking about my experience, certainly not sugarcoating, not mincing my words either. The reason I'm doing this so intensely is because this video, this teaching, is giving you the chance to spend time with the intensity of devastation. And only when you spend time with the intensity of devastation does that devastation actually make you better. When it comes knocking on your door, all you can do is spend time with the very discomfort, pain, and agony that you want nothing to do with. It came knocking on my door, It discovered that the door was already unlocked, and I was sitting at the dining room table awaiting its arrival, unexpectedly. And as the pieces start to come back together in your life, whether it takes days, weeks, months, or years, because you will go through this trial and tribulation for as long as it requires you to see what you need to see to expand your consciousness. People think that they clear the cellular body, and once the cellular body is cleared, consciousness expands. The truth is, you can clear the cellular body, and then the cellular body gets filled back up with the same crap you cleared. You ever heard stories like that? I went to a healer, they did this cool stuff, I felt really amazing, and then a couple of days later, a week later, I felt like the same thing happened again. Because what happens is the universe puts the same debris back in your cellular body until you've actually seen what you need to see to require your consciousness to expand. And when it expands, it means you've totally seen what needed to be seen through. And now when you're at a frequency that you can maintain, that's when the cellular body empties out for real. I had cleared my cellular body and I had this much left, and I didn't know how to necessarily work with it. I just knew intuitively life's going to do it for me. Because at a certain point, when you're trying to assert like the intention to work through things, you think you're trying to do the right thing, and oftentimes you're just trying to get away from your experience. And at a certain point in my clarity, I have no judgment against experience. I have no judgment against any of you that I continue to help. It's my greatest honor. And I certainly have no notion of where I'm supposed to be and what level, and I should not have this because blah, blah, blah. I'm just in this thing. But this gift gave me something I've never had in my entire life. Because I've had a very beautiful life. I've had a charmed life. I've experienced disappointment. I've experienced pain when I was younger, insecurity, rejection, all the normal stuff we have. Forms of abuse that certainly don't compare to the level of abuse that I help a lot of you through. And I'm humbled by all the ways that I can help you through such devastation. But I've been given an experience where, as someone who was always guided by the universe to give you the solutions to help you, I now have a visceral, lived, cellular experience of humanity's pain. I now know pain and suffering in my cells of my body, and it totally cleansed me and made me brand new. We all endure pain and suffering. The question is, are you going to allow it to transform and purify you, or are you going to negotiate, shut down, turn away, or lash out? You don't always have to be in pain. You just have to get into an unconditional relationship with truth. Is this going to happen to me? What does my intuition say? What do my guides say? Let me tune into what's about to happen. Is this more likely? Is this less likely? When we do this, we're trying to use our spiritual abilities to negotiate with truth. And we're telling the divine, ourselves, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. And you know what lets you fully trust the divine? Letting the divine walk you through the fire of devastation. That's how you trust God. The one that can't trust God is who's being unraveled. The one that is God is what comes out the other end. What should I do? Where should I go? What's going to fulfill me? Those are very beautiful questions. And all of that will come to you intuitively, and everything in your life will be recreated, and all the things will come to you magically once you've been transformed. The spiritual journey is what helps you through the fire of transformation, or prepares you with the coping skills to endure devastation, not to bypass devastation. And when I have taught the I love yous, I am not teaching you a process to get you out of pain and away from devastation. I'm helping you do the I love yous to befriend devastation so you can be an ally of your own transformation instead of someone who's trying to wiggle out of the greatest opportunity of growth you may not know you've been given. Like a parent that holds a child who is screaming in pain, and no matter how much that parent loves the child and tries to shush them and calm them, the child screams, and the wise parent doesn't stop loving because it doesn't work. The wise parent loves anyway, because whether the child can hear it or not, the screaming child needs love the most. So we love ourselves not because it's the magic process to make shitty things stop. We love ourselves because that's what you deserve when you have the great fortune of burning alive. I've been transformed by this. I feel more real than I ever have, which is a very strange thing to say. So I always felt kind of real and kind of not at the same time. And it allows my transmission and how I help you energetically through my teachings to become so real in your life that we can actually transform. But notice the transformation that is happening right now. We're transforming not by taking our attention off of the grittiness of the earth plane and onto the celestial realms and looking at something more pretty and expanded. We're transforming and you're feeling a lightness because we together with the partnership and the love of our connection together in community are huddling together to face.
He said earth plane.
And onto the celestial realms and looking at some. So I always felt kind of real and kind of not at the same time.
Listen.
And it allows my transmission and how I help you energetically through my teachings to become so real in your life that we can actually transform. But notice the transformation that is happening right now. We're transforming not by taking our attention off of the grittiness of the earth plane and onto the celestial realms and looking at something more pretty and expanded. And onto the celestial realms and looking at something more pretty. And not by taking our attention off of the grittiness of the earth plane and onto the celestial realms and looking
the earth plane.
At something more pretty and expanded. We're transforming and you're feeling a lightness because we together with the partnership and the love of our connection together in community are huddling together to.
Do you guys hear that?
Face the unthinkable. And when you face the unthinkable, when the dust settles, your triumphant resurrection and onto the celestial realms and looking at some. And not by taking our attention off of the grittiness of the earth plane and onto the celestial realms and looking at something more pretty and expanded. We're transforming and you're feeling a lightness because we together with the partnership and the love of our connection together in community are huddling together to face the unthinkable. And when you face the unthinkable, when the dust settles, your triumphant resurrection brings to life a frequency of consciousness the world has never tasted. And all will come to you to drink from your eternal fountain that you emit as a radiance of being, and you will transform the world because the transformed self effortlessly transforms the world so the outer reality can reflect back to the transformed self the purity of its own renewed vibration. One being has the potential to awaken an entire world, depending on how still and polite they are when devastation comes to you. That's the course of mastery. When we meditate, we're not meditating to go to other realms. If that happens to you, that's awesome. Meditation is practicing to sit still so you know what to do when the fire dawns on you. May not be taught that way, but it should be. Let's sit still. I'm going to ring a bell. We're all going to sit on our cushions. And by the way, you're practicing to do this so that when you are annihilated, you know what posture to take. So when you're annihilated, you go, oh, I should have a seat. That's real meditation. Real meditation is have a seat, whether you keep your eyes open or not. One rule in meditation. 2, sit still and let life win. That's real meditation. Someone's not being nice to you, and I'm not saying be in unhealthy relationships, but you happen to be in some moment of confrontation, someone's not being nice to you, judging you, criticizing you, stand there or sit there and let life win. Let them be heard, let them be mean. And when you feel, wow, that feels really bad in my body, I'm not saying believe what they're saying, but let what hurts, no matter how small or big the fire is, burn something out of you. And then bow in your mind to the person who just released you from something you didn't need for your journey ahead. That's why when I did the teaching, I forgot the video was, and I did the whole thing of thank you for this, thank you for that. I'm not teaching you that as some cute bypass. Like, oh yeah, that really hurts, thank you, so I can feel better. I'm saying it because I already knew this game, but I now know this game on a cellular level. And I'm not ashamed to say that I was completely devastated. I'm here to say that I'm astounded with the way I handled it. And for the first time in my life, I actually saw myself as I am. There's a lot of people in this world who think a lot about me, and it's a wonderful thing. And there was a part of me based on how I grew up and based on how insecure other people were around me, and I empath them, and I took on those beliefs of not feeling like I'm good enough. And so I grew up having remarkable abilities, people thinking a lot about me, and on the inside, not being able to believe any of it, which on one level is healthy, but I couldn't let in what life was giving me. I couldn't receive. I could give, but I couldn't receive. And in this process, I have seen myself directly. I've seen myself as I am. And I have now the ability to receive what I can give. I've given to you and I will continue to give to you. And I now give you the gift of reflecting your divinity because now I'm in a position to receive you. That's why this is a relationship now. You receive me, I receive you, and life does what it needs to do. You're not unfulfilled because you don't have the things you want. You're not fulfilled because a lack of fulfillment means you don't know how to receive. And if you want to know how to open, and if you wonder how do I open up myself to receive, well, let life clear you out. And how do I do that? Well, let it blindside you. Give yourself to every single moment. Every disappointment is the fire igniting. Disappointment is a fire is going to begin within you. The disappointment goes away. Didn't quite ignite. It smoldered. It smoked. Didn't quite catch. Then disappointment becomes discomfort. Oh, there's more smoke. Oh, the wind is coming. It's blowing. It's spreading. Ooh. And from discomfort, it becomes devastation. Now we have a fire. And from devastation, you have disillusionment, which is the way life has been flipped upside down just to shake out anything that doesn't need to be there for your journey ahead. Confusion, trying to hold on to the reference points of the past when nothing of the past exists anymore. Like walking down the street and out of nowhere, a door opens up out of nothing and someone throws you through an energetic door and throws you across time and space and you wind up in a different dimension. That's what happens on an emotional level. Will you work with it? Because we are all beings of light, but the light in you cannot be really known by you or felt by people around you until you've been properly transformed. And the way we allow the transformation is by being a willing participant in sometimes the things that don't feel good at all. Because one of the only ways for you to know that you're the light is to survive devastation. I'll tell you why. Darkness are beings who have been devastated, and their egos are partially or still intact. So the recovering ego that remembers devastation now takes out its pain onto those around them. Darkness are beings who have been devastated but intend to be unwilling participants. The light are those that are successfully devastated and either decide or, through their own fate, go along and see the journey through. They see the fire, they walk through it, and as they burn, they keep walking. And on the other side, reality dawns. And as a child, in my earlier years, when I learned about spirituality, in the very early years, I was 12 years old, I think, I heard someone talking to me religiously about hell and darkness, and I didn't know what it was. I knew about God, and that was awesome. I discovered God at an early age, and on the inside, something in me said, oh, guess what? I'm going to now dedicate my entire life to that. And that's it just happens on the inside. Kids watch sport and go, oh, I'm going to be that athlete. I'm going to practice that every day in my backyard, and I'm going to be that. I discovered God, and I thought, oh, that's where I'm going to go. That's it for me. And I had friends talking about hell and devil and darkness and all these scary things. And it scared the crap out of me when I was 12. Scared the crap out of me. And I spent most of my life on a subtle level afraid of darkness. Then you get close to realizing you're the light, then you ever have a fear like you're the darkness? You ever have that? Some of us have that, don't want to admit it. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you do. No, I've never thought I'm the darkness. Yeah. Okay. You haven't lived until out of nowhere you've asked if you're the Antichrist. It happens to the best of us. Am I awakening heart-centered consciousness, or am I the Antichrist? How does one decide? And you know what's funny? Is that all of this happening, and I can talk about the initiation I went through, it cleared my cellular body, it put me totally into my body and anchored me, had psychic surgery to clear a hole in my sacral chakra, all these things happened. And I was aware of all these things, but I also had my intuition saying, by the way, that's not something your healing abilities can actually do willfully, you have to just let it happen over time. I knew that. So I was just kind of doing my thing and going along and knowing, well, I'm already doing great work and I'm just going to go through a big upgrade and, sooner or later we're going to get to the premium package. And here we are. But what this did for me, and what this was as a gift for my inner 12-year-old, is I went through this devastation so in such a way that I realized that beings that are of the dark are in hell, and hell is really just the avoidance of devastation as the path of mastery, or the ones that take out their hell on other people and are in the pain, but have not embraced the benefit. And going through what I went through purified me to such a level where the inner 12-year-old in me saw who came up on the scene. Is recent media covered of a guy called Ken Morris who worked for Sarah Palin, who describes getting sucked into Sarah Palin's world and regretting and indeed having to apologize to people for some of the dirty stuff he did on her behalf. Well, Sarah Palin absolutely is a classic female psychopath. I spotted that right away as soon as she came on the scene. You can tell that, I mean, I'm not going to go into her personal life, but I'm sure she's had a lot of fun getting her way to the top. She will use anything she wants. You know, she said she was an attractive woman growing up, and she's still quite attractive. I can see the high testosterone levels, the predatory sexual nature of her is very obvious. The superficial smile, there's a sort of a plasticness about her that's very frightening. There's an underlying passive aggressiveness. I saw a video of her today, and she didn't even know who Paul Revere was. And as she realized that she was like, screwing up the story of the Paul Revere legend, you could actually see this psychopathic malice come over her, this sort of hatred where the eyes open up, the pupils dilate, and it's almost like clenched teeth. Like what they're really saying is, "Get the hell away from me." And they'll say it with a smile, but that sort of sprayed-on smile. Sarah Palin is a terrifying individual to me. I wouldn't even ask her the time of day. If there's one person in the world I could actually put a poster girl for female psychopath, it's
absolutely horror. Barack Obama's an interesting one. I don't think he's a psychopath. He's just an actor of puppet. He's just a showman that's been wheeled out by the agenda to have a nice smile, play the game, and he's loving every minute of it. I think he's more of a narcissist who doesn't really care. Once he gets his paycheck and is up in the limelight, he does have that smile, but that could also be from training. I would not be surprised if he's had some kind of theatrical training. Well, I like to maybe bet he has, and those kinds of smiles are used within showbiz and Hollywood. I did an interview on another show recently, a few weeks back, and the host of that show is a former Hollywood actress, and she was telling me all about how they're trained to smile in that way as well. So I think that's what's going on with him. I wouldn't say he's a psychopath. I'd just say he's just a puppet showbiz and an actor, an X-Factor politician. That's the way I describe him.
Deborah King, who wrote on this back in 2008 about Sarah Palin, will probably agree with you about Palin, because an article entitled "Sarah Palin is a classic psychopath as defined by law and psychodynamics" came out in 2008 from Deborah King, and she speaks about this black and white mentality that psychopaths like Palin have. It's sort of kill or be killed.
Yeah, and it's purely, as you said, black and white. It's almost like a moral binary code: what can serve me and what can't, and any kind of morality attached to the option or the choice doesn't matter. It's like the computer HAL in the film 2001: Space Odyssey. It just purely implements what's needed to get business done. And that film is actually a very good analogy of a psychopath, but in a technical sense in terms of the computer.
Mm-hmm. Great areas I'd love to get into with you on this, but let's just follow that political and social issue for a while, and that's to do with Obama, for example. We know the techniques he was using include neuro-linguistic programming techniques built into the speeches that he was giving, which gave them that extraordinary power. I saw that they had been allegedly written by some 21-year-old college kid, right, a bright spark, but I don't really buy that. They seem like theatrical constructions, as you were mentioning there.
Yeah, well, they come from the actual theatrical background in terms of things like method acting, the pregnant pause, the anticipation, the silence. Hitler used this quite a lot. If you look at some of his old addresses to his rallies, there's a theatrical aspect to the use of language. And again, it's what we come back to the mind control thing. You can put a phrase like saying "yes, we can" over and over again. If you say that enough times, it becomes a phrase that embeds itself in a person's subconscious. It doesn't have to be anything like "yes, we can" or "keep hope alive" or any other buzzword, 1,000 points of light. You could just say something like, bread, butter, and cheese, over and over again. And the majority of people will actually start to say it, repeat that as a mantra. It's just like a tape loop of just verbiage is put into the actual subject's mind, into the target's mind. And it's words that have no underlying meaning. I found that very profoundly here in Ireland during the Lisbon Treaty. The yes posters were specifically designed in such a way that the word yes, which you associate with positiveness, yes, which you associate with maybe, the having a sexual orgasm like Molly Bloom at the end of Ulysses, opposed to no, which is negative, which, and you can see how the posters were done. The yes posters had this, the word yes was almost like the topography and the graphic design they used. They almost looked like show business or something. People voted for that without any real depth to the message, just like people voted for Barack Obama without any real, putting any kind of emotional or psychological or intellectual capital upon his mantras.
Yeah, well, that's something that you're starting to take a look at, Thomas, on Thomas Sheridan Arts. That's your YouTube channel. Is this issue of cultural and corporate symbols that are all around us, and because they are symbols, they're controlling us in unspoken ways?
Yes, well, this is initially how I became kind of woken up in a way. I am a visual artist, and my background is in corporate graphic design as well as being a painter. I've also been interested in things to do with symbolism and archetypal motifs and visual cues and how they're used to change a person's emotional state. I worked at Citibank, Citicorp in New York, and I can remember in the design department getting the corporate standards manual for graphic design, and it was absolutely specific in how it showed how the Citicorp logo should be used, placed, its distance from text, what colours could be used and what colours couldn't be used. And I just thought, of course, that this was just all because they had corporate copyright law, and like all trademarks and logos, there was a specific usage sort of charter to go with them. But later on, I found that wasn't the case. The Citicorp logo has been designed in such a way that made it look like there's certain archetypal shapes that appear in the human mind if you put electrical signals into our brain and close our eyes. They appear as certain shapes. There are often things like a circle inside a dot inside a circle, or a cross, and a very common one is the Celtic cross motif. The Celtic cross shape is really what the Citibank logo is, but stylized into an oval. and it was originally designed from this. The original logo of the bank was a windmill, and it was a stylized windmill, but it was designed in such a way that the designers knew that this shape had a specific emotional resonance on people who view it. This is also a very ancient science. You can actually trace many of the logos that are used in corporations today, in public bodies and in regalia, even flags, right back to the earliest cave art 25,000 years ago. These are archetypal symbols embedded in the human consciousness. And I can tell you for a fact that these fellas, these big boys in charge of all these companies and organizations and even political groups, they're very well aware of this, and they use this symbolism to control us. This is one of the reasons why people in modern cities are constantly tired. They're bombarded by symbolisms and logos all around them, many corporate logos, and it's literally burning they're burnt out at the end of the day from seeing all these things, even though they don't immediately recognize them.
Well, yeah, they're all over the landscape. It's, if you're not watching TV, which is where you're going to get drowned in them, they're all over the landscape as well. But you're saying the shapes and down to the color as well?
Oh yeah, specific uses of color is very important. Like the color red is very common during the 20th century. The color red is very interesting. This spectrum analysis of the color is about 690 nanometers, which is a low vibrational color rate. It actually just makes you feel repressed. And this is why the totalitarian regimes of the 20th century and earlier, such as communism, the British Empire, they used the color red. It's also why the red carpet was used to develop the elite. A red carpet would be laid below their feet. Subconsciously, when we were exposed to this low frequency color of red, you would have a feeling of being lessened. And here are the elite walking on top of the red carpet, making them automatically seem regal and have an extra stature above us. And the red, this is why they use red as a color of conquest and things like rape and sexual aggression. So, even colors are used that way.
Well, that's a very powerful insight there, to realize the extent to which this stuff is unconsciously having an impact on us.
Oh yeah, well, you look at a star, the 5-pointed star. Now look at what that's used on. It's used on everything from communism to US military vehicles. It's used on the Heineken beer company. These things are very powerful. This is a very ancient science going right back to the mystery schools in Egypt and even probably earlier to Babylonia. And these people know exactly what they're doing, and this is something that we have to protect our consciousness. This is also one of the reasons that psychopaths target us, is because we're visually and symbolically clueless. We're never taught on this thing in school, unless somehow, like me, you turn out, you're an artist, or you turn out to be you study graphic design and you become aware of all this stuff. But yes, this is something that's causing us enormous problem. This is why I'm a great proponent that we have to develop our own new symbology. As we're to get out of this nest, we have to start developing our own archetypal symbolism, and to change our own consciousness, because the corporate logos of today, we have to transcend that and the regalia of the past and develop a new visual motif going forward. It really is a battle of consciousness. When all is said and done, this awakening, this truth movement, this political and global awakening, it comes down to a battle of consciousness. First, we have to protect our consciousness, and then we have to develop a new form of consciousness to move forward.
Yeah. Neil says in the forum, there's definitely a sense of awakening collective consciousness coming through in your work. And it brings me back to something you mentioned there about the royal figures on the red carpet, going right to the heart of looking for the links between the interaction between the abused individual and the psychopath at an individual level, and also the same thing happening at a social level. To an extent, if you say, look at Yahweh, the Hebrew God of the Old Testament, and that God is a jealous God. That God will strike you dead for, anything.
Yeah, no, he's a psychopath, the God of the Old Testament. Yeah. Do what I do. He loves you conditionally. He loves you one and hates you the next. He'll destroy you. And that's a lot of it comes down from that as well. That's why when, Constantine, who was the Roman emperor, who, allegedly but didn't actually convert to Christianity, he was very aware of this idea. And that's what the real purpose of the Council of Nicaea was. It was to create a new religion that would steadfast in the rule of kingdoms and leaders, emperors and tsars and Caesars on earth, by somehow associating with the god head in the sky. This is where the Pope and stuff came from, as God's representative on earth. And not only that, all the English monarchs and all the other monarchs as well.
Yeah. Well, we know, for example, in the relationship between a psychotherapist and the person who's been treated, that there is a phenomenon called transference, where there can be attachment to the psychotherapist on behalf of the person who's been analyzed. So similarly, we have a similar dynamic between the abused person and the abuser. So is it essentially a fear dynamic that drives us to create these figures up on the pedestals and then go and worship them?
What happens is, we develop, if you look at the actual person who's a proto-psychopath, I'm talking about someone in a relationship. You talk about someone like Martha Hindley, who was one half of the Moors murderers with Ian Brady and killed those children in Manchester and tortured them back in the 1960s. There's a very interesting dynamic to the proto-psychopathic condition. It's a sadomasochistic thing, where they worship and adore the authority figures above them and despise anyone they see as they deem as being below them. And this is why you have a situation in the past where people were less educated and more easily mind controlled, mainly through things like diet and also through military training, where they were literally charging to like a cannon or a machine gun for a king who, you know, basically didn't consider them human, but they didn't care. But the king to them, or the queen that they were dying for, would seem almost like would be a god figure on earth. It's a form of it's a very interesting dynamic, but it's a sadomasochistic drive ultimately, I think.
Yeah, and people can get trapped into this stuff at the social level and not really realize what's going on.
Yeah, and also I was reading about, I get on these weird tangents, but I was reading about military cannons, bronze cannons that were used in the military, and the shape, most cannons built in the last 200 years before the development of modern artillery, in the cannon at the top would be the royal insignia of the royal family who you were fighting on behalf of. And this was to impose this notion. It was sort of like a psychophalic projection of the king's prowess, almost like a sexual phallus in the form of a cannon. As you were firing that cannon into the enemy and killing them, it was almost like it was almost like an extension of the king's own sort of power.
Yes.
And that's why many of these cannons were stylized and actually made to look like phalluses, even with the foreskin, you know, on them and everything. These were not designed functions to strengthen the cannon or to, you know, change the projectile qualities of the cannon. This was purely a sort of phallic implement. And one of the things they used to do is when the battles were won, the enemy cannons would have the insignia of the other side would be melted down and put into sculptures. If you go to the Wellington Monument in the Phoenix Park in Dublin, the actual thing is a gigantic Masonic edifice, and he was a big-time Freemason. But it's also a penis. It's Wellington's penis, and around the outside there are bronze friezes that are made from captured cannons at Waterloo and various other the battles of the Peninsular Wars and all the other campaigns that Wellington took in French, Russian, and Spanish cannons. And they're melted down and laid into these freezers and put onto the side of the monument. It's almost like when the enemy has been defeated, the king's sexual prowess, of the enemy's sexual prowess, has then been taken away. And that ties in very, very strongly with the whole notion of psychopaths and sex and power and sex. It all ties in. And so, you know, there's a sexual neuroses to much of this as well. And this is another aspect to why they build towers and, you know, so on. A lot of it comes from that.
Okay, that's very illuminating, and we can follow that up a lot. But one of the things that we have a growing awareness of psychopaths at the individual and social level, and that's through that awareness that we can then become cognizant of what's going on, educate ourselves, and begin to look at a new landscape, one devoid of the symbols, as you say, that it doesn't matter where we look. But in that dynamic that takes place, you described very well in Chosen People, there's a degree of self-entrapment taking place between target and the psychopath targeting that person. There's a self-entrapment, and perhaps there's also a similar self-entrapment taking place in our relationship with our leaders and our institutional structures.
Oh, absolutely. Now you're talking about the self-entrapment on the aspect of the victim. Yeah, definitely. But there's also an interesting kind of self-entrapment in the aspect of the psychopath as well. They tend to, once they have the enablers and the minions, they won't have a knockdown plan. This is often what brings them down. There's no fallback plan, and when things go wrong, you're completely screwed. But the entrapment thing is because the victim in a personal relationship or in the society has completely externalized the whole consciousness over to the psychopath. And they're no longer really themselves. What they are is sort of like a puppet, and their consciousness has now been sort of invaded like a parasite through the persona that the actual psychopath is used to work them, where they no longer think of themselves as being able to function or think for themselves or even live without the psychopathic, you know, giving them, you know, the go ahead to do and think anything. Classic example of this is maybe a woman who's married to a psychopathic man, and perniciously over the years he will break down her psychological sovereignty, that even if he's a complete jerk who slaps her around and treats her appallingly, he'll have broken her down to the point where even if her life is miserable and she's a complete mind control slave and a complete enabler and serf of this individual, she'll actually still think he's a fantastic man, and will actually go in public, when she's in public with him, she'll actually tell other people what a wonderful man he is or a wonderful woman. Another thing that happens too, and this is a very common one, a person in a relationship with the psychopath will often finish the sentence of the person who's talking. So if I was with a psychopath and I was talking to you and I began a sentence, the psychopath in public will often interject and finish my sentence for me, even if the sentence is not, even when they complete the sentence with something which I was not going to state or the point I wasn't making. And this has trained me over time to know that eventually the psychopath will become my representative in public, so I don't have an opinion anymore. You see that all the time with things like with government agencies and all this. These experts who who tell us that we have to have lithium in our drinking water, and they complete our thoughts for us. They don't actually give us a choice of what we should think. There's no debate. There's just the white coat expert comes on television and says you have to do this, that, and the other. And this is the whole thing that has happened. We've been trained not to think for ourselves anymore and rely on experts to do our thinking for us, and that's incredibly psychopathic.
Yeah. When I was thinking about our last interview, an image came to me of an individual walking towards the light with past a shadow. The shadow that dogs us as we move towards the light is psychopathic shadow. That's what we're discussing here. If you are of the shadow and if you're looking away from the light, light is truth and light is reality. Essentially, these people then are in the illusion business, either at a personal or a social level.
Yes, well, light can be used in two ways. It can be used to illuminate or to interrogate. If I'm interrogating you, I will be standing behind the light, shining the light in your face, and all you'll see is the light, but you won't see me behind the light. You'll only hear my voice, and that's how they use the light against us. This is all we're getting into other fields now, sort of occult and the sorcery and this other kind of weird religious aspects that the elite have. But the other way with light could be used can be to illuminate the darkness around us to see it, and that's our job. Our job is to take control of the light and shine it on injustice, to shine it on pathology in society, and to take the light off them. At the moment, what's happening is that they're interrogating us with the light, and they're standing behind the bulb, and we're seeing nothing. I'm just being dictated to and confused. And this is what the way a policeman shines a light in your face when he pulls you over at night, is to distort and confuse you. It's a very interesting dynamic. It works on both sort of a physiological level in terms of the actual effects of the photons on your psychology, but it also works on a metaphorical level exactly the same way. Light is this is why light has always been a very sort of powerful motif among the controlling classes. Well, right back to the beginning of time.
Well, you've taken that issue in a direction I didn't expect. And it's so true what you're saying about the light that shines on the course of time. You could really feel it for an hour on that alone. But that issue of illusion, if you look at, say, the use of corporate advertising and corporate PR systems, you see them essentially selling illusions to people. So do you think that is their field?
Yeah, and they're selling a false impression of yourself. They're taking your psyche and they're removing it and replacing it with a manufactured one that's not who you really are. See, this is another thing as well. We all have to start this down. And this is what gives us the ultimate advantage over the psychopaths, whether the psychopaths in the job, psychopaths in our lives, or the psychopaths in government, is that we're capable of doing something that they can't do. We're capable of self-examining, self-referral, self-realization, and then working upon that. Psychopaths don't have a shadow side, the shadow self. I'm talking now in the Jungian sense, where they reflect upon their shortcomings and their idiosyncratic behavior, and then project it upon others. Don't do anything wrong with them, but they don't self-repair of themselves. They don't sit down and think. Now, our problem is we tend to overanalyze a lot of things, but we really have to, as individuals, sit down and start self-referring ourselves, our behaviors, and then this will give us the ultimate advantage over them, because they're not capable of deep, insightful self-referring. They're not capable of that. And this is what ultimately gives us this is what gave me the advantage over them, because I basically sat down and I started taking notes, and I've got mountains of notebooks of all the past individuals, relationships, and situations I was in that were definitely psychopathic. And this allowed me to create a common thread that ultimately manifested in puzzling people. And I think we've all got to do the same thing, because I've actually transcended it now to the point where I can actually safely say, I've still got a lot of work to do on myself, but my consciousness is probably as open as it's ever been in my life, and we're all capable of this. And the first stage towards that is self-examination and then acting upon that.
Well, that's the value of your assault on the issue of what's going on with psychopathology from every possible aspect. You researched it at every level and then challenged it at every level.
And I'll tell you one thing as well. I absolutely love my life now, because some people say that ignorance is bliss, and maybe it is true if you go about it the wrong way. But I honestly would never go back to the way I used to be. I actually find the world and my life far more interesting now, because my eyes are open and I see with almost like a new vision, and I can walk down the street in any city in the world and become aware of how certain things are changing my consciousness. And it's tremendously interesting and it's tremendously liberating. And once you're awake and you're open, you never want to go back. It's just such a good way to live. You're truly living a good life, probably for the first time in your life, because you're finding free of all the toxic and pernicious, tsunamis of information and deception and distortion that you've been bombarded with since childhood.
Yeah, well, there are a great deal of people who are switching on to a different level of understanding, and a lot of it's happening on the internet. People who are switched on are streaking ahead of the rest of the population at a phenomenal rate. The ones who are on the internet.
And that's why the ones who have not woken up, or the ones who have an agenda to stop it happening, they tried to make out in the early days that, like, people who are becoming aware of what they call truthers in the United States, that they're somehow sad potheads who live alone and have no friends, and they're socially isolated, and they invent these conspiracy theories because they've no power. Well, I can tell you for a fact that people I know who have woken up are the most empowered people I've ever met in my life. They're absolutely, very happy and content. Now, they may have went through an early stage of sort of like fear and paranoia, and that's totally understandable. But once they get over that, they will have a very rich and interesting life that many people are missing out on.
Yeah, I think I've seen that, and we've seen it in the forum, breakthroughs.com, where people